We at Boothworld Industries say thanks. You have a marvelous day.
Since phone numbers and phone calls have been available, we tend to avoid calling someone we don't know. Sometimes we type the wrong number, which is the reason that we get redirected to somebody completely different from who we wanted to reach out in the first place. And often we end the call when we hear an awkward, wrong number. However, occasionally, some people may call these random numbers from pure curiosity and may end up receiving an unexpected and maybe creepy result. That's why today, we are taking a look at one of Internet's most creepy, weird and grotesque phone numbers out there. This is the story of Boothworld Industries. Boothworld Industries is an internet creepypasta of a supposed phone number that, when reached, would play the following recording.
You have reached Boothworld Industries. Your number has been logged and traced. A service representative will be with you shortly for remodeling. We at Boothworld Industries say thanks. You have a marvelous day.
In the recording, what can be heard is a woman named Samantha who talks about how you have reached Boothworld Industries. It also talks about how your phone number has been traced and how later a representative would contact the caller in order to schedule an appointment for remodeling. The original story talks about a guy that moved to a cabin, but because the contractors did a terrible job working on the cabin, he has to wait for the plumbers to reach him in order to fix the damage. He receives a phone call from a phone number he doesn't recognize, but he assumes that the plumber is calling him. He answers the phone and is greeted by a "Please hold for the next available operator." Some elevator music plays, and after some time a voice came from the other end. The operator called Samantha greets him to Boothworld Industries and asks for his name. He proceeds to reply with a fictitious name, which the operator said that they couldn't work with fictitious names or names from persons that they didn't know. The guy gets a little spooked out and asks why they needed a name. They reply saying that they need it for remodeling. He thinks that it's the plumber and decides to give them the name of his ex-girlfriend Jessica. The woman on the other end replies saying that the remodeling is scheduled for August 21, 2015, and she later asks if he would like to reschedule the appointment. The guy starts to be skeptical and thinks that somebody, or his ex, is pulling a prank on him. He tells the operator that he would like to reschedule, and the woman tells him that the appointment can be rescheduled for Tuesday. To which he replies saying if it could be rescheduled to be that exact same day, thinking that it was the plumbing company. The woman asks him if he wanted the appointment to be at 3 o'clock, to which he agrees and the phone call ends. Later that day, the exact numbers calls again, and Samantha tells him that his courtesy calls starts right now. On the other end he hears Jessica's voice and how she is in despair, saying things like, "Why are you doing this?" He tries to talk to Jessica, to which the operator says how Jessica couldn't hear him and how the appointment had already been concluded. After that he hears some strange noises and Samantha finally says, "The scheduled work has been completed." After this the guy turns mean and decides to ask for another appointment. He tells the operator the name of another person called Dan, which was one of the contractors that had worked on the cabin. Samantha asks him if Wednesday would work for him, and he replies saying, "Didn't you say you had a Tuesday appointment available?" To which Samantha replies that the slot has been filled by another member. After some conversation, the guy asks if the appointment can be rescheduled, to which the woman replies, "There's always a way." Samantha says how Boothworld Industries is always looking to add new members and how, in the recent years, their membership numbers had fallen due to lots of factors. The guy asks how many members they needed. Samantha replies saying, 1,000. The guy's jaw drops and he answers saying, "I'll get you your 1,000 members." The call ends and the guy is frightened. Because if he wasn't able to get 1,000 members, somebody would be getting a courtesy call to listen to his last few breaths. At the end of the creepypasta, he asks for help and displays the phone number, which was 630-296-7536. After this very extensive story popped up, it started gaining some popularity due to YouTubers attempting to call this number. One of those YouTubers was Brittney44. She was one of the main YouTubers to ever call the number, and she explained how the supposed remodeling was simply another to say that Boothworld Industries was a hitman hotline and that it had nothing to do with remodeling houses, but, instead, killing someone. And after calling the number,
You have reached Boothworld Industries. Your number has been logged and traced. A service representative will be with you shortly for remodeling. We at Boothworld Industries say thanks. You have a marvelous day.
she made another video in which she explained how Boothworld Industries had called her back and texted her another phone number, 801-820-0263. We'll analyze this number in a future video. After everything that was going on with the creepypasta and these two phone numbers, people wondered who created the story and phone number, and, most importantly, if the story was real or not. The public was in need of some answers to every doubt that popped up. The most important thing that people needed to know is that the whole thing was simply just fake. It was just not possible for a company like this to be active with almost no problem, because it would have alerted the authorities, and it would also have been advertised to the general public. And as far as who created the story was written by a guy called Christopher Bloodworth, which is an indie horror writer that has published different physical books to the open world and decided to create an online interactive horror story in which the readers could reach the phone number at their own risk. The creator would often call the readers or text them, because the number of the persons would be traced. So, in conclusion, we safely say that Boothwold was just simply a horror story or project meant to only scare people, but with no bad intentions. So, would you call Boothwold Industries?